an elite SEAL team vanishes without a trace. No signal, no backup, no hope. But 3,000 miles away, someone hears a ghost frequency, one no longer monitored. And without orders, without clearance, without backup, she takes off. Her only companion? A dog no one remembers. Her only goal? A mission no one believes in. Let's dive into this unforgettable rescue, here on Life Moral Tales. The jungle was never supposed to be on the map. But Echo 9 never had a map to begin with. The elite 6-man SEAL team was sent on a low-visibility recon flight over disputed Pacific airspace. Simple job. Fly in, snap thermal signatures, fly out. Nothing more. No engagement, no combat. Their aircraft, a stripped-down, sound-dampened insertion craft, had no backup and no firepower. And no one ever expected them to vanish. But they did. The last recorded signal came 12 minutes before system's failure. The sky above them, clear one moment, fractured with static and interference. Radios went dead, compasses spun. The co-pilot swore he saw the ocean flicker. Then the engines coughed, all lights died, gravity took control. They slammed into the canopy like a metal spear, branches snapped like bones, the body of the aircraft split on impact. One of them, Corporal Hayes, died instantly. A shard of the cockpit burst through his chest. The others? Alive, bruised, bleeding, breathing. Commander Elias Ward, the most senior, snapped into action despite a dislocated shoulder. He dragged 2 unconscious teammates out from under the broken fuselage while screaming at the medic to check pulses. The jungle swallowed the wreck. The sky went quiet. And then came the silence that was too silent. Within hours, they established a perimeter using what was left of their gear. Radios, dead. Satellite GPS, jammed. Digital compasses, looping. EMP? Someone asked. No, something else, Ward murmured. Sergeant Marcus King, the youngest, climbed a nearby ridge and reported something strange. The trees aren't just tall, they're wrong, like too thick, too symmetrical, like they grew around something. Private Len spotted the first signs. 2 deep claw marks, 5-pronged, in a solid chunk of volcanic rock. 2 drag lines through the underbrush. 2 a tree that had been twisted, not snapped, into a spiral. 2 then they found the carcass. It was a wild pig, or what was left of it. The body had been split cleanly down the middle. No bite marks, no blood. The organs had been scooped out. King whispered what everyone was thinking. This wasn't a fall. It was a trap. That night, no one slept. The air turned too still. The jungle, once buzzing with insects and birds, felt hushed, as if something bigger was listening. And somewhere, out there in the trees, something blinked. Not with curiosity, with calculation. Before we go further, what would you do if you crashed on an island where nothing made a sound except something hunting you? Speech balloon. Comment below, and don't forget to subscribe, because what happens next is beyond survival. It's legacy. They called it the quietest night in their lives. But that wasn't peace. It was warning. After sundown, the team sat huddled around a small chemical heat pack. They couldn't risk fire. The jungle was too dry, too volatile, and too alert. Every noise they made, every cough, footstep, clatter of metal, echoed strangely. It wasn't that the forest was too loud or too quiet. It was that the sound didn't travel, like the air itself was listening. Private Lynn took the first night watch. He was solid, quiet. Former ranger with jungle experience in South America, he knew how to hold position. Until the radio clicked. Check in, Lynn. ... Nothing. Lynn, confirm position. ... The flashlight swept across the edge of the brush. Nothing but ferns. No movement, no response. Sergeant King moved forward against orders. 15 feet into the tree line, he found Lynn's headset hanging from a broken branch, still warm from the ear. No blood. No footprints. Just 3 deep scratches etched into the bark of a nearby tree, 10 feet high. The next morning, they combed the area in tight formation. No signs of struggle, no torn uniform, no scent trail. Ward called a halt. If it can take Lynn without a sound, we're not tracking it. He drew a line in the dirt. From now on, pairs only, no exceptions. You leave sight range, you're already dead. That day, they moved camp closer to a cliff edge, better sightlines, only one direction to defend. They built perimeter alarms using flare tripwires and empty ration cans. At sunset, one of the cans fell over on its own. King reset it, chalked it up to wind. But when he turned around, all 6 cans had been repositioned. In a circle, facing inward. That night, nobody slept. They sat with backs against trees, rifles pointed outward. Each man breathing shallow, fingers tense, afraid of blinking too long. And still, nothing. No movement, no attack. Just watching. Then came the laughter. Not from any of them. It wasn't human. It wasn't animal. It was short, ragged, like someone trying to mimic laughter they'd heard once, but didn't quite understand how to shape it. Private Dawson, the radio op, froze. It's listening. At 3:42, Private Mendez broke protocol. He urinated just outside the perimeter, muttering to himself the whole time. When he came back, he was pale. They left me a skull. It was a monkey skull, fresh, not clean, eyes still soft. But it wasn't the skull that chilled them. It was what was carved into the bone. A number, 1. Commander Ward issued new protocol, no movement without visual confirmation. King dug a 12-inch foxhole to sleep in, facing upward. No one complained. The worst came at dawn. As the light returned through the tree canopy, the team noticed something they'd missed the night before. All their spent MRE wrappers, hundreds of them, had been arranged in the clearing, in the shape of an eye, perfectly symmetrical. Dawson whispered, "It's not hunting us." King, "What then?" Ward didn't answer right away. Then finally, "It's learning. If you think monsters only attack with claws, you haven't met the kind that waits, watches, and mimics." Day 3. And Private Mendez was losing his mind. He hadn't spoken since the eye made from MRE wrappers. He kept scratching at his neck, drawing little circles in the dirt with his finger. Refused to sleep unless someone stood over him. By midday, the humidity felt like boiling soup in their lungs. Sergeant King reported a spreading rash on his legs, likely from infected swamp water. Mendez was now drinking straight from puddles when no one was watching. Ward tried to maintain structure, patrol shifts, gear checks, perimeter security. But the jungle wasn't a battlefield anymore. It was an ecosystem with one rule. Only the patient survive. And something else out here was very, very patient. That evening, they tried a short-range recon, send 2 members out to scout the northern ridge, Mendez and King. Mendez begged not to go, said he felt marked. "You're not marked," Ward told him flatly. "You're alive, that's all that matters." They left at 1,800 hours. They didn't return. But at 2,000 hours, someone, or something, threw King's rifle into the center of the camp. It wasn't dropped, it wasn't misplaced. It was thrown. Clean, not a scratch. The magazine? Full. Safety on. Mendez's name was carved, no, scraped, into the side of the barrel. No sign of blood, no sign of anything. Just a message. Next. Ward didn't sleep. None of them did. Dawson started keeping a journal, not for intelligence, but for sanity. "I think it's showing us rules," he wrote. "One by one, as if it wants us to know we are in its war game." At 0430, Dawson and Private Allen followed a WEAK signal source, possibly from the aircraft's black box beacon. They crossed a shallow ravine and entered a thicket of unnatural brush. That's when they found the hole. It wasn't large, maybe 6 feet wide, but deep, circular, and smooth, as if carved with intention. Bones surrounded it, not just animal. Human, old, wrapped in scraps of faded cloth that still bore the U.S. flag. Dog tags from another team. Team Echo 2, The last line of the briefing before this mission flashed in Dawson's memory. Echo 2 disappeared off radar, presumed lost to terrain. He called back to base camp. No response. Static only. That night, they moved camp again, found a small ridge near high ground, better view. Dawson placed motion sensors, manually wired, old school. Just after midnight, 3 sensors triggered in sequence. First 50 meters, then 20, then 5. But nothing approached. The sensors themselves were dug out and repositioned in a perfect line, pointing toward their sleeping bags. At 0400, Alan went to relieve himself behind the brush. He never came back. Dawson found him 5 minutes later, alive, sitting in the dirt. Eyes open, pupils dilated, not blinking. A long, shallow cut ran across his stomach, not deep enough to kill, just enough to hurt. And on his chest, written in ash and blood, one word: leave. Ward snapped. We are leaving at first light. Full retreat south. We move or we die. But it was too late. Because the moment he said it, the sky above them shifted. No stars. Just 2 black holes high in the canopy. Watching. Unblinking. Silent. If you're still here, what would you do now? Your team is breaking. Your enemy doesn't sleep. And now, it's not just watching. It's communicating. 3,000 miles away. In a hangar no one visited anymore. A radar monitor blinked. Just once. Then again. Then steady. The base had been off-grid for 15 years. Buried under decommission orders, closed files, and bureaucratic dust. But someone had left the signal channel open. Someone had never really left. Captain Morgan Delaney. She sat in silence, boots propped against a rusted toolbox, a half-burned flight jacket wrapped around her shoulders. Her face was carved from war. Beautiful, yes, but quiet. The kind of quiet that only comes from living through something no one talks about. The screen beeped again, a Cold War emergency frequency. A pattern in Morse, distorted, desperate. She stood up, no radio call, no confirmation. She didn't need one. In the far corner of the hangar, under a camo tarp faded by time, sat an old friend. The A-10 Thunderbolt. Still oiled, still flight-worthy. She'd kept it that way, because some ghosts need wings. She didn't go alone. From behind a metal door, the dog emerged. Belgian Malinois. Gray along the muzzle, one eye cloudy from scar tissue. Vest still intact, name tag half-torn. Dax! He walked beside her like he knew the mission. Like he'd been waiting, too. She looked down at him and said only one thing. Let's finish it. By sunrise, the A-10 cut across Pacific clouds with a roar no satellite would trace. No tail number, no authorization, no destination logged. But it flew fast. Straight. Silent. Into the storm. Back on the island, the remaining 3 members of Echo 9 were barely standing. Dawson had 2 cracked ribs. Alan's stomach wound was worsening. Ward hadn't slept in 36 hours and kept blinking like he was seeing double. The sky darkened, not from nightfall, but from pressure, the feeling that something was closing in. Then they heard it. Not from the jungle, from above. The scream of twin GAU-8 engines split the clouds. Echo 9 scrambled, shielding their eyes. And then, the impossible. An A-10, not in government use since the last drawdown. Circling low. Its silhouette unmistakable, but darkened against the clouds like a myth come alive. It banked, dropped flaps, landed. The cockpit hissed open, and she stepped out. Silver flight suit soaked in mist, red helmet tucked under one arm, platinum blonde hair damp and wild from wind. Eyes that had seen too much, but still steady. Delaney. The soldiers stared, unsure whether to salute, speak, or run. She didn't wait. Status? She asked flatly. Ward was the first to speak. How did you find us? She knelt beside Dawson without answering, checked his ribs with practiced ease. Signal came through an old frequency, she said. Nobody else would have heard it. Alan stared at the dog that followed her out. Is that military? Dax sat in front of Alan, looked straight into his eyes, calm, controlled. Delaney only said, he's more than that. In the next hour, everything changed. Delaney repaired their broken SATCOM rig using parts from her jet. Dax sniffed out hidden tripwires. The creature had begun setting traps. They weren't just being hunted. They were being studied. That night, the jungle went quiet again. But for the first time in days, so did the fear. Because something had changed. Hope didn't come from command. It came from someone who'd never stopped watching. A pilot presumed dead. A dog bred for battle. And a mission no one remembered, but she'd never forgotten. If a stranger appeared at your lowest point, no orders, no backup, no questions, would you trust them? Echo 9 had no choice. And neither do we. They expected a machine. They got something more. Within the first hour, Dax had already mapped the jungle better than any drone could. No barks, no growls, no hesitation. Just precise, calculated movement. Like he had memorized the terrain by scent alone. Ward said it best. That dog doesn't move like a dog. Delaney didn't respond. She just gave a single whistle. Dax turned instantly, disappearing into the brush without a sound. Minutes later, a thud echoed from the tree line. Dax returned, dragging something by its strap. A flare pack, the one Alan lost during the first ambush, still intact. Dax dropped it at Delaney's feet, then sat beside it like a soldier reporting. Alan stared. That pack was under the cliff. There's no way he could have. Delaney clipped the pack to her belt and looked straight ahead. He doesn't need ways. He just needs a reason. That night, Dawson's fever spiked. The medkit was running low. They needed antiseptic, something to reduce infection. The only supply left? Still in the original wreckage site, 2 ridges east. But the area was compromised. No one had dared go back. Delaney glanced at the map. I'll go. Ward interrupted. No, if you die, Hope dies, let me. She whistled once, a sharp, rising tone. Dax stood up. No leash, no command. Just instinct. She pointed to the spot on the map. Then she opened the zipper of her suit, pulled out a small med pouch, and attached it to Dax's vest. No words, just trust. Dax vanished into the dark. 25 minutes later, distant sensors buzzed, faint but real. Then silence. 5 more minutes. Then, rustling. It wasn't the last time. The next morning, while searching for firewood near the western slope, Alan tripped a hidden snare. His leg twisted, he fell hard. Then the snare's real purpose triggered a falling spike trap made of sharpened branches. He looked up and saw Dax mid-air, slamming into him. The two rolled down the hill together, the trap crashing into empty dirt behind them. Alan's arm was dislocated, but he was alive. Dax stood beside him, bleeding slightly along his side. He didn't flinch. Alan tried to say something. Couldn't. Instead, he saluted. Dax stared back, steady. No tail wag. Just mission complete. That evening, as the team regrouped, Dawson finally asked the question that had hung in the air. How old is he? Delaney, cleaning Dax's wound in silence, replied, Too old to be doing this, but he wouldn't stay behind. Ward asked, Why not? Delaney didn't answer. She just looked at Dax and said, Because he remembers who they left behind the first time. Later that night, Dax sat at the edge of camp, ears up, eyes fixed on the trees. Like he knew something was coming. Like he knew it would have to come through him first. Not all legends speak. Some watch. Some run into traps. Some bleed for those they don't know. But all legends, at their core, understand one thing. The mission comes first. And Dax? He never needed to be told. The storm came back on the 4th night. But this time, it wasn't the only thing that returned. They had moved camp to higher ground, a limestone cliff overgrown with moss, slick with mist. Delaney said elevation would limit approach paths. She was right. But she also knew heights don't stop what climbs. At 1:42, motion sensors activated, again. But this time, not just one. All 6. Triggered in perfect sequence. Clockwise. Like a sweep. Dawson gripped his rifle, sweat mixing with rain. "It's here," he whispered. Delaney stood motionless, eyes closed, listening. Then, she opened them. "Pull back." Ward stepped forward. "No, we make a stand here." But it was too late. A tree behind them split in half with a snap like a gunshot. From the shadows, it moved. The first full reveal. Way. Over 30 feet long. Way. 10 feet tall at the shoulder when upright. Way. Scales like overlapping slate armor, jagged and worn. Way. Claws curved forward, not back, for holding prey. Way. A snout flattened like a Komodo dragon, but broader. Shoo. And those eyes, black, wet, expressionless, but focused. Shoo. It didn't charge. It stalked. Like it knew no one could outrun it. Alan fired first. Full burst. Direct hit. The creature flinched, but only for effect. It surged forward with impossible speed. Alan didn't scream. There wasn't time. Its tail snapped sideways, hitting him like a freight train. His body struck the cliff wall with a sound no one could ever unhear. Silence. Then Delaney raised her flare launcher, fired straight at its chest. Flash! Heat! Roar! The beast recoiled, snarling for the first time. Dax moved before anyone else. He dashed forward, not to attack, but to drag Alan's body back. His teeth latched onto the man's vest strap, pulling with all he had. One leg, then 2. Alan's boots scraped the rock. He wasn't breathing. But Dax didn't stop. Ward laid suppressive fire while Delaney pulled Dax and the body into cover. "I've got him," she shouted. But Dax wouldn't release his grip. Not until Alan was all the way in. Only then did the dog sit down, breathing heavy. Still, watching. Always watching. The creature circled once more, testing. Then vanished back into the jungle. No footsteps. No drag trail. Just gone. After dawn, the rain stopped. Ward stood over Alan's body, hand on his chest. No pulse. Dawson placed Alan's dog tags beside his rifle. Delaney knelt beside Dax, checking for injury. One deep gash on his shoulder, bleeding. She wrapped it with steady hands. Dax made no sound. That afternoon, they retreated into the canyon's edge, hoping the stone walls would shield them. Delaney found a crack in the cliff, a narrow tunnel, maybe 4 feet wide. Dax led the way. Inside, it opened into a long-forgotten cave. And that's where they saw it. Evidence. Military crates, old blood, symbols, tags. This wasn't the first team here. Dawson picked up a tag. CPT Harlan, Echo 2. Echo 2 hadn't vanished. They'd been fed to it. Ward finally broke the silence. "We end this, tonight." Dawson looked at Delaney. "Can we?" Delaney didn't blink. Yes. Then looked at DAX. He didn't move. But somehow, everyone understood. He was ready. Some enemies don't want you dead. They want you scared. And when fear fails, they get hungry. But this time, they weren't hunting prey anymore. They were hunting a problem. And problems get solved. There was no more debate. No more waiting. It was time. They had one shot. One final maneuver. Delaney outlined it in the dirt. Lure the creature to the gorge. Lure. Bait it with heat and vibration from a decoy flare setup. Lure. trigger the rockfall. Loo. And if all else failed, shoo. She tapped the final line with her finger. My plane finishes it. Ward objected. You're not even cleared to fly. You land that thing on jungle dirt. Delaney cut him off. I've done it before. Then she looked at DAX. He was already standing. No command, just instinct. He knew what he had to do. The team built the trap by moonlight. Dawson wired the old explosives left by ECH-02. Ward set the trip lines. Delaney reprogrammed the beacon from her jet to mimic the heart signature of a mammal, a final taunt. Dax would carry it into the kill zone. Alone. Dawson crouched beside the dog before he left. You've saved all of us already, he whispered. Dax looked at him, then licked the blood still dried on Dawson's boot. It wasn't a goodbye. It was a transfer of duty. The jungle held its breath. The creature was near. They knew it. Not from sound, but from absence of everything else. Dax walked into the open. The beacon pulsed red on his back. Then, the trees exploded. The creature lunged from the darkness, faster than anyone had seen. Dax didn't run. He didn't flinch. He turned and led it straight to the cliff. It chased, twisting, roaring, intelligent, hungry. Dax darted under low vines, over fallen logs, sliding through brush like a ghost in uniform. The creature snarled, snapped branches, closed in. Then, flash, triplin, detonation. A wall of rock fell, slowing it just enough. And that's when Dax slipped. His back paw caught a vine. The creature surged, claws raised. A lunge. And then, screaming thunder. From the sky, the A-10 roared overhead, tearing the clouds open. Delaney flew low. Dangerous low. Lights off, flaps half deployed. No lock-on. Just her eyes. And her rage. She fired. The minigun's sound was a scream of justice. Metal rained from the heavens. Tracer rounds stitched across the gorge wall, chewing through jungle, striking the creature head-on. It roared, piercing and painful, rearing up in agony. Blood sprayed. Stone cracked. The beast tumbled backward. Once. Twice. Then silence. Smoke. Rain. Breathing. And then movement. Dax. He limped from the edge, bleeding, wounded, but alive. He dropped the beacon, laid down, and looked up at the plain above. Delaney was banking out, circling once, then gone. The jungle exhaled for the first time in days. Ward sat down in the mud. Dawson leaned back and finally let his rifle rest. No one said it, but they all knew. They owed their lives to a ghost. And to a dog that never disobeyed. Later that night, they carried Dax to the only dry ground they could find. Delaney returned before dawn. She didn't say anything. She didn't have to. She placed a hand on Dax's head. He blinked once, then slept. She whispered something only he could hear. Then stood. Ward saluted her. She didn't salute back. She just said, "Make sure they remember him, not me." Then turned, boarded her jet, and was gone before the sun cleared the ridge. Some warriors don't bark. Some fly alone. Some finish the job when the world forgets it ever started. And when thunder rolls one last time, sometimes it's not weather. Sometimes it's justice. The rescue choppers arrived 36 hours later. 2 of them. Standard evac protocol for missing military units. The crew expected wreckage. They expected bodies. What they found was silence. 4 men stood in a jungle clearing, eyes sunken, uniforms torn, skin stained with dirt and something that looked like ash. Their weapons were holstered. Their expressions? Unforgettable. Dax was lying down, wrapped in a torn survival blanket. Still breathing. Still alive. Barely. Delaney sat beside him, her flight suit stained, helmet in her lap. When the medic rushed forward, she raised a hand. Calm, quiet, controlled. Start with him. She meant the dog. The soldiers were flown out. Medics worked fast. Nobody spoke on the chopper. But when they landed, Delaney and Dax were gone. No one saw them board. No one saw them leave. All that remained of the base helipad were two objects placed neatly on the tarmac. Whoa. A military K9 tag Dax, K9 spec. Whoa. And a patch from a flight suit, Black Phoenix, number 09. Shah. The debrief took hours. The brass wanted intel, footage, coordinates, names, kill confirmations. Ward answered only once. You want evidence? Go back. We'll wait here. They never did. The official report? Echo 9 rescued after extended exposure to unknown jungle trauma. 1 KIA. Environmental hallucinations possible. No enemy combatants confirmed. Case closed. But something strange happened 3 weeks later. In a classified medical lab in Nevada, someone opened a crate of blood samples from the island. They found cells that didn't register on any known scale. Not plant, not animal, not fungal. Alive, moving, trying to escape the vial. The crate was sealed, buried. Labeled, Echo Incident, Do Not Unseal. 6 months later, in Alaska, a civilian weather station captured footage of a low-flying aircraft cutting across frozen sky. No transponder. No tail number. Just a flash of silver and red. Heading north. Into nothing. And 1 year to the day, a woman walked into a VA hospital in Arizona. She said nothing. Just placed a service dog on the counter. The dog was old. Scarred, muzzled gray, but alert. Tag read, Dax. She turned and walked out. The front door security cameras glitched. They never caught her face. Today, Echo 9 lives quiet lives. Some returned to duty. Others retired early. But all of them, every single one, meet once a year at a bar near the coast. They don't drink much. They just talk about the mission, about the storm, and about the thunder they still hear when it rains. Dawson wrote a book. It never got published. Too unbelievable. He called it When the Dog Didn't Bark. And sometimes, when he walks past an airfield, he swears he hears something overhead. Not a plane, not a storm, just thunder. And sometimes, he smiles. There are battles no one will ever know. Heroes who never needed medals. Dogs who never wagged their tails. And ghosts who only return when the world forgets why they were needed in the first place. Sometimes, the world forgets its heroes. They are not always dressed in shining armor. Sometimes, they wear old flight suits, carry scars no one asks about, and fly planes built before most of us were born. Captain Morgan Delaney wasn't called, she wasn't expected. But she came back, for no reward, for no recognition, just because someone had to. And beside her, Dax, a dog who didn't bark, didn't whine, didn't flinch. He just moved forward. There's something deeply human in that. Doing what's right, not because it's convenient, but because you remember. Because someone once did the same for you. Ghost Thunder is more than a survival tale. It's a story of loyalty, of legacy, of what happens when silence is met with action, and when forgotten warriors prove they're not done yet. It makes us ask, what would we do if no one came? Would we become the ones who go? If this story moved you, don't let it fade like a forgotten signal. Pushpin like this video so others hear it. Speech balloon, comment below, who do you think is the real hero, Delaney or Dax? Bell subscribe to Life Moral Tales, because tomorrow's story will make you question everything you thought you knew about second chances. And before you go, here's a teaser. He hadn't spoken in 600 years, until one morning he opened his eyes and asked for a king that no longer exists. TV, don't miss it.